think we're all here so we can start. It is 3 o'clock on Monday, March 18th, and this is the meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee. Please silence all cell phones and pagers. Planning Director, roll call, please.
Certainly. Member Dosey?
Present.
Member Lockyer is excused. Member McCoy?
Present.
Member Paline?
Present.
Member Walsh? Here. Vice Chair Rotman?
Present.
Chair Jakeway?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May we have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, March the 14th. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Seeing none. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time the item is presented. If you want to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone here who wants to comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing no one, let's proceed. Minutes of the last, item number 1 is approval of minutes from the March 4th meeting. Does the committee have any revisions or changes to the minutes from that meeting?
I have a comment. I guess it would be item number 2, the Cole Hotel. On page number 4, there's some comments regarding, plant species and the plan, the graphics, etc. But I thought as we went through the project that there was mention of using decorative pavers, either in the parking areas or at the entrance, and I would like to see that added to this list of comments.
So, Mr. Chair, what we will do is under comment number 3, parking lot material, we'll just clarify that it was intended that the pavers would be in the entrance area and that asphalt used in the new parking lot that is being developed.
Correct, is that?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Now, unfinished business. Item number 2, Michael Flannery for a minor architectural application for exterior renovations of an existing 2-story office commercial building located at 750 North Palm Canyon Drive.
Mr. Chair and committee members, this item was reviewed at your February 4th regular meeting, and at that meeting, the AAC continued the matter with requests and directions to the applicant to provide additional materials and clarify the scope of the proposed project. So what I'd like to do is just go through some of the exhibits that have been resubmitted. These are the photographs that you saw at that meeting. These are the same photographs of existing conditions at the property. So you see the Palm Canyon frontage on the top, as well as at the bottom right, the interior driveway to the parking lot, and then on the bottom left is the rear of the property. So the site plan is shown here, and the first floor plan is here on this exhibit. One difference between this and the previous is that they have eliminated the seating area under the existing covered driveway, so that has been removed and that will remain an access driveway. Here's the second floor plan of for the project, and a roof plan has been provided to show where mechanical equipment is located and the screening that would surround it here on the right side of the screen. The applicant also provided 3-dimensional renderings of the project, and so this plan shows the locations of the vantage points where the renderings were produced, or to be, show where they're standing from. And so these renderings here show the revised elevations for the project, As you'll see, they have eliminated the screen block material from the west elevation, as well as what was used to separate the patio space where the driveway is located. So that has been removed, and they have reconfigured the windows a bit, so you can see the kind of the new layout of the window wall along the frontage here, and as it wraps around the side of the building. Again, just some additional renderings showing some of those vantage points. This drawing here shows you what you saw back on February 4th on the top along for the rear elevation. Actually, I'm sorry, that's an incorrect. This is the front elevation, so the top is inaccurate. This is the proposed front elevation, but the top exhibit is what you saw on February 4th. The bottom exhibit is what you see as the revised plan. So you see that the screen block has been removed, and you do see some of the kind of the window reconfigurations that have been changed. It also does show the rooftop mechanical screen on the plan. So this is the proposed east elevation. This is the rear of the building. What you saw on February 4th is the top drawing, and then on the bottom drawing is what is being proposed. So you see the driveway still is remaining open. The screen block has been removed, and you see some of the window changes from the last meeting. Materials are in this exhibit. So that kind of really goes through some of the plans. I'll just go back to the three-dimensional rendering so you can see if you have questions on that. But those really are some of the major changes. As I said, they've removed some of the screen block, reconfigured some of the windows, and are really opening up the building to the street in terms of the window additions that are being added, and they've eliminated, as I said, the outdoor dining under the covered patio. So I'm happy to answer any questions. They have also given us a revised color scheme, so that is shown and reflected in the three-dimensional renderings. Happy to answer any questions you might have. The applicant is also here. Thank you.
Any questions of staff?
Will we be receiving a parking lot or site landscape plan?
They did provide a site plan, but they haven't provided any additional details as it relates to the landscape. But we are happy to work with them on any recommendations you might have for some of those changes.
And actually, if I can just jump in, Mr. Chair, the landscape plan on the parking lot area is not part of our review today.
I see it says demo existing trash enclosure, reconfigure. Is there more information or detail on that? Because it's right on Indian Avenue.
I'll let the applicant answer that question. I'm not certain about that.
I'm sorry, Mike is not here. I'm Chris Porter. I did some of the original drawings. If I could step in and speak for Mike, I apologize. He's not here.
Give us just a minute when we
Sure.
finish with staff, and then
Sure.
we'll talk with you. Anything else for staff?
So-
Okay, now we are
Yep,
ready for the.
I actually do.
Sorry, Steve.
Sorry. So it appears as though the program for the building has significantly changed.
Yeah. it's-
So there was a restaurant plan for the lower level. There was a kitchen at the second level. So it seems like the program has significantly changed. So just,
Yeah, and you can see when you look at the comparisons of the previous and the proposed, the changes that have
Right.
occurred. So
okay,
the scope has been reduced quite a bit.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, now applicant, please give us your name and address and give us a little presentation.
All right. My name is Chris Porter, and I've been working with Mike Flannery. I did the original presentation drawings that were presented at the last meeting. I am a resident of Palm Springs. Sorry I missed that. One of the things, you did a great job of explaining what the changes were. One of the things we did leave in the new presentation on the front elevation that you can see there is the metal staggered element that is above the front door. There had been some concern that we had taken away too many of the indentations, for lack of a better word, on the building, so that kind of gave some of the character of the original building back. There was concern with the roof that was over the driveway that was going to be used for outdoor dining and how that related to other buildings. At this point, it's been decided that we are not going to be doing that roof at this time, and so that has been removed. And the discussion, I think it came up regarding the trash enclosure. That's something that we'll be reviewing later to come up with something that's new to replace what's the existing. The other main thing is that originally when we presented the colors for the building, it was a two-tone scheme. We had a very dark, almost a black color on the lower level, when initially we thought we had a tenant that was going to be wanting that. We've currently got a new color, which is a warm gray, that we are going to be using on both the lower and the upper levels, so it's no longer a two-toned facade color. That is that color that you see there, Dunn Edwards Barnwood Gray, which is the third item on the top. And then we've got the roof screen that's down in the lower right. That'll be painted to match that color, so that hopefully will blend away from the renderings that were presented. If you are across Palm Canyon and you're looking up from the sidewalk at eye level, you shouldn't be able to see that. However, a render, when he did, if you go back to the last one, sorry, he did tell me that he had to, in order to show the roof HVAC enclosure, you would almost have to be up at about 30 feet before you're really going to register it, because it sits so far back from that particular facade. And I was hoping Mike could be here because he had a brush out on the paint color. I have a small chip. I apologize. That's all I have with me. I didn't realize he wasn't going to be here. I also have that's the bronze anodized that's going to be used for the new windows, a little darker than what's originally there now.
And you're using the same windows on both floors now?
That's correct, yes. We had been using a clear upstairs and the bronze anodized, so I think it just makes it a little more cohesive as far as the whole building and the color concerns were. The existing metal structure that is to remain, we're going to be refinishing that in a black and steel. It's currently kind of rusting steel. It's existing, so we want to clean that up a little bit. And although it's on the color rendition, it may not be exactly correct, but this is just an example of the Barnwood Gray. And I apologize, I thought Mike was coming with a brush out, so I'll have to tap dance on the conference table a little bit on that one.
Okay, anything else?
That should be it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committee, questions for the applicant? How about starting with John McCoy?
In my opinion, this is a improvement, certainly an improvement over the existing building. I think with the change in program, what we have been presented with here is pretty self-explanatory, and at this time, I don't have any major concerns or comments to present.
Okay, thank you. John Walsh?
This is a new parking plan, a new striped parking plan with a new car count, correct?
Correct, that is correct. Most of it's existing. The darker lines that you see in the ADA improvements, those are above and beyond what's there currently. So most of the changes that you would see are on the north, where there is what used to be an existing drive-through ATM area.
Right. Okay. And was there a parking requirement associated with this?
Because the former use was an office use, it served
Right.
as a bank, and we don't know the future tenants at this point in time, other than the office, which will occupy the second story of the building. The key is that as new tenants go into the building, staff will verify to make sure that parking is in conformance to our code requirements at that point in time. But we don't need to look at the parking count here as part of this review.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Steve?
I too believe this is, I like the consistency in materials. I think we've maintained some of the depth of the facade, which I like. So overall, I've got nothing but positive comments, so I'm good.
Thank you. Tom Dosey?
No questions?
Robert?
Do you know, is the applicant, is Mike planning to do submit something for the landscaping in front of the building?
I believe that would be once we get further along with the project, correct?
Okay. And then, I think we asked this question the last time, and I don't remember the answer. The ground floor tenant, the bathrooms for the ground floor tenant, if it is a restaurant, are they expected to build out the restrooms themselves? Or are you trying to accommodate all the restrooms on the second floor?
Currently, in the plan revisions that we're doing for submittal to the city, based on the occupancy of the building, we will likely be submitting a plan for the restrooms on the first floor. But again, we don't know who's going to be occupying those spaces at this point.
But, well, this is not so much a planning thing, but the restrooms that you have up on the second floor, they will accommodate the square footages that you have for both the first and second at this point?
I believe we're going to have to add for downstairs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Question I have on the existing building, there's wood siding on the second floor above the drive-through. It looks like now that that's gone, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about the ceiling above the drive-through?
There is wood plank that's on the ceilings, that's also at the vestibule that is being extended in the back. That'll be painted out. That'll likely be painted out a lighter color. It could possibly be the color we were looking at that was an off-white for the upper floor before. It'll definitely be a white of some sort so that we get a generous amount of reflection.
And then you're keeping the metal, I'm gonna call it an awning over the entry of the street, but you're eliminating it at the rear, and that area is being incorporated into the second floor?
Correct. That is correct. That's where the addition to the second floor is going to take place.
And then the mechanical screen that you're showing, that's a purchased item. It's fairly see-through. Is there a screening or anything that would go on the back side of that?
I think because of the angle of the photograph, it's louvered, so I don't think you're going to be seeing through that per se. But again, I would have to get an actual mock-up before I could.
Okay, well, just
Can't say.
understand, I think our goal would be that you don't see through that to see the equipment.
Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike goes with your drink.
Okay, committee, let's discuss this project and see if we can move it along. Start with John Walsh.
Certainly, the graphics were a tool this time around that helped in terms of understanding what the intent was, both in terms of concept as well as some detailing. So I have a much more positive response. At least we can kind of see our way through this. You know, I see nothing that is remarkably troubling about the building.
Okay. That's good. We'll just work our way around. John. John McCoy.
No comments at this point. No.
Steve?
I'm good. I think
Okay.
it's much better.
I think the only comment that I have is regarding the proposed vestibule. It seems where they're bringing that glass out to the adjacent glass, we do lose some of that offset in the building, and I was just wondering the purpose of the vestibule, or does it need to come out as far as it does underneath that trellis element? Because it appears to be kind of a small vestibule, and if it could be set back, or.
I didn't even notice that. That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, unless it was like storefront, then it would make sense, but to have that double, it's almost like a non-usable space, and I felt that having that reveal was a little bit more important.
Yes, and I would also think that waterproofing from that above is, you know, rain's just coming into that vestibule. It doesn't really function that well. Robert?
No, no, I think it's fine. I just, I'd like to see some landscaping in front of the building, what they're gonna propose. And then the other thing which, the chair raised was the location of the trash. I think it probably should be incorporated into the parking plan now, before,
Right,
instead of an afterthought. But,
along with lighting.
yeah, as well, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna pick up on Tom Dosey's comment. I think the vestibule at the street is kind of redundant, especially since if we're keeping that louvered element there, which I'm glad that you're keeping, you don't really protect anybody in that vestibule. I think it might be better just to leave the location of the wall around the front the way it is and just upgrade your glazing system.
What you don't see, which you will on the reflected ceiling plans, underneath the existing metal projection, there is currently, that's attached to the storefront system, like a greenhouse roof that goes up and over that. So there is a glass roof that sits underneath that, and that's proposed to remain at the section that is at 12 foot 9.5, going up underneath there.
So the horizontal steel members remain. There's a glass roof underneath
Yeah,
it.
they step.
Right,
So they're at an angle, and if you go to the site now, although it's directly above the door, we're putting a transom above the door, but we would still maintain what is now currently existing, a greenhouse type, you could almost call it a skylight, that's made out of storefront, that follows the angle of that metal stepped
and so
structure.
you say that's existing now?
It's existing now. It currently is from the door top angles up. We're going to put the glass transom above the door so it would angle up from the top.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, that vestibule shape you see on this current plan, which Mike wants to take it out anyway, what is shown on that plan is a vestibule at the front entrance, and I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the extension at the back. But what we're showing at the front, what is currently labeled as a vestibule, it's an angled shape. That is literally the shape of the glass, as I call it, a greenhouse roof that sits above it, which angles and follows the angle of the metal structure.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I have any other comments. Is there anything else from the committee? Do we have a motion? You look like you have a motion.
I think we're all in concurrence that we can approve as presented. Any other comments, other than the landscape and the garbage enclosure?
So I'm hearing a motion to approve as submitted with the condition that the landscaping, trash enclosure, and landscape lighting be submitted as a separate submittal. And that's both landscaping in front of the building and in the parking lot. But it looks, go ahead.
Do you want to do that as a separate submittal or as a subcommittee review?
I think a subcommittee review.
Okay. I think based on the scope of it, that should be adequate.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, who will be on that subcommittee?
Well, I think if Mr. Rotman would agree, I think, because he's very concerned about the landscaping in the front. And either
and
John
I
or
would be happy
Tom has
to.
had Tom Dosey.
Okay. So 2 is adequate.
And just a comment, when that comes back, you know, that they review the screening requirements for the parking lot along Indian Avenue as well, landscape screening or low wall.
Okay, moving to new business. Item number 3, Studio AR&D Architects, on behalf of the Management Trust for minor architectural review to alter the existing landscape at the 48 Baristo condominium complex located at 1498 East Baristo. Noriko, do we have a staff report?
Yes, good afternoon. The project in front of you is a proposed landscape alteration project for the 48 Baristo condominium complex. The proposed project area consists of three main areas, and the first one is the primary frontage on the East Baristo Road frontage and interior space, as well as the rear elevation on the East Arenas Road frontage. And the pictures shown on this slide showed how the site actually looks like as of today. And this slide shows what's existing and what's proposed on the primary elevation on the East Baristo Road. The existing plant palette is very simplistic, which only consists of California farm palms and the desert spoon. And the applicant is proposing to completely change the arrangement of the plant materials and the design for the primary frontage to increase the plant diversity and then also implement irregular and asymmetrical arrangement to bring a more natural appearance to the site. And this is a proposed elevation on the East Baristo Road frontage. As you see, the proposed design incorporates the placement of boulders as well as the different types of plant materials, including olive trees and the California farm palms. And this is to show a typical interior landscape design. The image on the left side shows existing, and the right side shows proposed. As you can see, the amount of the plant material is going to be increased quite a bit. And particularly, there will be a change along the driveways, and there will be the trees such as shoestring acacia, and acacia, palo blanco, and olive tree and desert ironwood will be installed in the designated parking areas. And this is a rendering provided by the applicant for the proposed design in the interior landscape area.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a question, and maybe to the planning director. Are we reviewing the landscape within the project or just outside the walls?
Our primary concern is the landscape from the public rights-of-way. That's typically what we, as the Architectural Advisory Committee, review. However, Ms. Kikuchi has also reviewed the changes to the landscape on the interior of the project to find them in conformance to our water-efficient landscape guidelines, et cetera. But we're going to be focusing our comments on the exterior of the project.
And this is a cross sections. And finally, the proposed rear elevation. The left side shows existing, and the right side shows a proposed. The plant palette that is similar to the primary frontage is incorporated on the rear elevation. And instead of California farm palms, existing palms actually Washington farm palms, but that's going to be changed. Well, I'm sorry, that's going to remain, but additional planting material will be installed to make the area that's a little bit more aesthetics. This project, the 48 at Baristo, when it was originally constructed back in 2006, the city council actually adopted a resolution which included multiple conditions that relate to this project. And the first one is that the protection of the corner cutback area. Although this property is not a corner property, one of the conditions that was included in the resolution states that the visibility on both sides of the driveway to be provided. And according to the proposed plan, there will be a 5-foot-high boulder as well as an olive tree, which will be located in the areas. And therefore, staff is recommending to include the conditions of approval, which requires them to be located out of the setback areas. And then also, another requirement is that the Department of Engineering Services requires all trees, which is going to be located within 10 feet of the public right-of-way, to be developed with deep root barriers. And based on the plans that are submitted, leatherleaf acacia and olive near the east driveway on the primary frontage will be affected by this project. The proposed design conforms to the findings that are stated, and the Palm Springs zoning code 94.04.04.00, which is architectural review. Design is compatible with the site surroundings. Proposed prime material conforms to the material requirements stated in the water efficient landscaping ordinance. And for these reasons, staff recommend the Architectural Advisory Committee to consider approval of the project subject to the conditions of approval. Staff and the applicant are both available to answer any questions you may have, and this concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add that Mr. Lockyer's firm is responsible for the landscape plan that's being presented today. He is obviously absent from the meeting. I just want to make sure that the record is clear that Mr. Lockyer is not participating in our discussion or the vote today.
Thank you. Okay, questions of staff from the committee? John?
Noriko, the components of this proposed plan are all plant materials, correct? They're swapping some out, they're adding some, and also boulders. There's no change to the hardscape in terms of paths of travel, flat work, low walls. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
Right, and then you had mentioned the conditions that were passed in 2006. The first one that you mentioned, and I'm sorry, I got lost. It had to do with
That's the protection.
obstructions in the right-of-way?
It's a protection of what's called a corner cutback visibility.
Okay,
Right.
right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
John McCoy, any questions?
Yeah. On the proposed lighting legend, we have multiple we have fixtures located within the landscape. You go back to the legend, and we have multiple fixtures that we do not have specification of manufacturer, and we don't necessarily know the lamping of these, so we don't know what the lumen output, wattage, any of that is at this point. How do you feel that it complies with the lighting code?
The proposed lighting fixture will be subject to the city's outdoor lighting standards. So eventually, when the applicant will submit a plans for building and safety for building permit, as a part of it, the planning department will review it to make sure that it conforms to the requirements. And then also, with regards to the specific questions about lighting fixtures, the applicant is here and who is able to provide more detailed information.
Steve, any questions of staff?
No.
Tom Dosey?
No questions.
Hi, Norco, thank you. I just need a little more clarification on the visibility at the driveway and where the cutoff line is and which boulder and tree we're actually, you're mentioning in the staff report.
I actually have a 24 by 36 inch plans that I
Okay.
can probably show you.
Okay. Or
Oh,
you can,
yes.
or you can go up there
Okay.
too.
So the boulder that's going to be affected by this requirement is this one right here. It's going to be 5 feet in height.
Okay.
So one, and the olive tree that's going to be affected is this one right here. So the way that the corner cutback area is determined is the staff basically drew an extension line from the edge, the end of driveway straight towards the street. And according to the engineering department, the point of measurement can start at the curb.
Okay.
So staff measured 30 feet in both directions and connected the point to see what's going to be located in the space. And based on the determination, this particular olive tree and the boulders were determined to be in the corner cutback area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Is the applicant present? Present. Please come forward. Give us your name, please, and address, and you have 10 minutes to make a
Yes.
presentation.
Cool. My name is Nick LaFaro from Studio ARD Architects. When you said address, what did you?
Where
The
do you
address
live?
of your firm here in town.
Yep, 457 North Palm Canyon Drive, Palm Springs. So this project was originally completed over a decade ago. There's been no changes to the existing landscape. Thank you for the presentation, Noriko. As you saw, the existing landscape is very limited in the plant palette. At the southern entry and the northern entry, we really have just desert spoons and California fan palms that were placed regimentally, but without much thought. So it was the intent of the clients to give this an overhaul and really take some of the existing desert spoons and cluster them in more thoughtful manners, relocating some California palms, adding more California palms to get some variety in height, get some boulders, layering of ground covers, cacti, yucca, to really beautify the two entries to the property. Also introducing more plants and trees such as olives, desert ironwoods, palo blancos, bocarnias, etc. And so those were the first two levels were the exterior southern entry and the northern entry. The other level of detail for this project was the central driveways. They wanted to be able to see more layering and more canopies. Right now, all they have are agatillos, which is the highest plant material you'll see there right now. And they're hoping that when the gates open, you're gonna see more layering, again, with boulders, ground cover, cacti, and canopies of olives and palo blancos, shoestring acacias reaching into the main avenues of the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions of the applicant? Steve, we'll start with you.
Nope, not at this time.
Tom Dosey.
On the interior drive aisles, is there enough room to plant or are utilities a concern or anything for the additional trees?
Yes, so we went out and surveyed all utilities. We got the existing civil drawings, and we were very conscious where we were planting certain size trees. So ironwoods, we were going 36-inch boxes in areas where we had more room. Smaller areas, we were recommending 24-inch palo blancos or shoestrings that'll get us the drapage and the layering that we want without an overly large tree specimen.
And is there enough space for the canopy of the ironwood as it matures?
Correct,
in
there
the
is.
selected areas?
Yes.
Thank you.
John Walsh, questions? John McCoy?
So with the lighting,
Yep.
can you heard what I was asking before, do you have
I
any more
did.
further information on that?
I don't have further information at this point. It was the desire to relocate existing lighting and to match existing lighting. We haven't gotten those exact models or specifications yet, but we're working with our landscape installer to figure out what those specific models are and to provide lumens to the city.
With, at the front entry, on the east driveway, east of the east driveway, just in that area, I think I'm counting 18 light fixtures, just within that small area. What what's the design decisions behind what's being lit, and what is the, what's the hierarchy of what you're trying to achieve in visual?
Yeah, I think what you're counting is every single symbol shown on here. Anything that's red that's not filled in is an existing location that's getting relocated to a solid red. So what I'm counting here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights. And the hierarchy here goes 2 well lights per olive tree, 1 up light per every other California palm, and we have 2 spotlights for casting onto yuccas and boulders.
Okay, that's much better.
Okay.
But I still do see looking at the final counts, existing is, it says, quantity 135, and we're moving up to a total quantity of 228 within the project. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly, and the majority of that is occurring on the interior of the property.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's just a lot of trend, things tend to start in commercial areas and, follow through to residential. And this being a higher density residential, I just want to make sure this isn't going to come off as a commercial project. There is commercial in the vicinity that's extremely bright. I don't want to see this project matching brightness. It needs to be a residential level.
Are those concerns mostly at the entries of the project?
I think in general. I see what you're doing on the interiors, and it looks like nice accents and things. We aren't here to really focus on that, as I understand. And but I would like to see attractive public visual space without going to a commercial.
Of course. That's our intent as well.
Okay.
What I can do is provide a quantity for the exterior spaces on the southern and northern entries, and I can clean up the drawing further, so I'm not showing existing to be relocated here. I'm just showing what the final product would that.
And just keep your color temperatures lower range and warmer.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Robert?
No questions.
Currently, there's the ground cover are good-sized rocks. Are those being removed, or are those being used, or?
They are being 100% removed and replaced with 3/4 inch pea gravel, Mojave Gold color.
And then the 5-foot-high boulders. I see designation for 3 of those.
Yep.
What's the concept or the design intent of having a tall, kind of a monument sort of boulder?
Yes, so rather than using yuccas exclusively to get these dramatic moments, we thought it'd be unique to have these taller, more sculptural boulders and lighting those up, because it wasn't just the intent to fill with landscape, it was also the intent of the clients to go minimal as well. So we showed them some precedents, and that's the intent.
Well, I have to say, I think this is an astounding improvement over what's there. Good work. Any more comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Committee, any discussion? Steve?
Nope. I do not.
Tom?
I think I remember when this was first installed, and at that time it was dramatic in the way that it was like the first approach of a contemporary style landscape, and I thought it worked well with the buildings, and I see the desire for them to move to kind of a sculptural but natural type.
I think the boulder groupings are important. They seem to play a key role in this. And I think as long with the 5-foot boulders, I noticed there wasn't really a size for the other boulders shown. So I think we need to see or have added to the plan, are those, 3 to 4 foot, 2 to 4 foot, what the size of those are, since they are a main feature. One concern I have, and again, I'm just looking at the graphic scale on the plan, is for the ironwood trees on the interior. Those typically get a very large canopy, and when I use the graphic scale, they're showing on the plan maybe with a 10-foot canopy. And rather, I would like them to review that for appropriateness in that location, so they don't end up having to, I don't think they'd be happy if they had to come back and constantly be pruning those, that they should be placed in a large enough area so they can achieve the size, that they want to grow to, which could be 25 or 30 feet in diameter. So that would be something I would review, where they've got those tucked in those narrow areas. And then just to ensure the appropriateness of the species that are outlined. Sometimes they'll say zone 13, but for long-term, with the dichondras and some of the other ground covers, we've sometimes not had as great of luck with that. And but those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. John McCoy.
I will concur with the plant comments that were just made. Just a few of the plants that, well, yes, they will grow here. They may not have a great lifespan in extended heat periods, but I think it's a great improvement.
John Walsh.
I had no idea that this was as badly needed as it is. And I think that the photos do tell the story. It's got great appeal in terms of the direction that it delivers on, and I'm sort of struck by the jump in scale that is more appropriate for these pretty hard edge stucco walls and building and whatever. And I mean, I know it's not the purview necessarily and the focus of the committee, but I mean, I think that these cross sections through the driveways kind of tell the story. In any kind of detached townhouse architecture like that, that is a brutal and deadly challenge. It's like, how do these buildings kind of come together? So when I see these rather large, canopied trees, it's like, bring the canopy on. To me, it adds a softening and a believability to this being a residential project, and, certainly would keep it looking like that, and it wouldn't have a commercial edge to it.
Right. Thank you. Robert?
No comments.
Couple of comments. One of them is more of a technical issue. There's an electrical transformer shown on the front, but there's a big olive tree and a collection of boulders. I don't know what the requirements are to provide potential access to that, but check that, please, just to make sure that things don't have to be shifted in the field. I really like the concept of using the boulder group so that we've got something more than just plants to give it some height. So I do want to echo Tom's comment about the canopy of the trees inside. I know that the entire driveway in this project is a fire lane, and I don't know if the fire department has any say-so as to trees that overhang the streets. I mean, I would love it if they did, but UPS would hate it and fire department might not like it. And then if you have to chop the trees to make them comply, we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval and to include the comments.
So a motion of approval, including the 3 comments that staff has suggested. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Very good comment. No, just the photographs. You see, it's totally different. Notice there's two swimming pools. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. That's not all. May we just take a minute to look at this information we just got?
Mr. Chairman, I will be recusing myself from this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it would be appropriate if I recuse myself as well.
So,
As you're
Miss-
a neighbor and as you worked on the project. So now if we have 3 people, do we have a quorum?
No, we have 4 people. So Mr. Payline, yourself, Mr. Rotman, and Mr. Walsh.
All right, okay.
So we do have a quorum and
I
can
learned to
consider
count
this
in the
item.
wrong school. I have a question for the planning director now that we're looking at this letter. Does this really affect our reason to be reviewing this project? It's kind of a matter that we're not affected by.
You're correct. We forwarded the letter to the city attorney this morning to have him opine as to whether or not that would prevent us from considering this item on the agenda today. His opinion, no, as this is a private suit between individuals. It will not impact the city's review of this project in conformance to our adopted code requirements.
Thank you. So I think we can move on to new business item number 4, Pinnacle Palm Springs LLC for a major architectural application for the construction of a 3,224 square foot house on a hillside lot located at 1747 Pinnacle Point. Staff, do you have a report for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The AAC reviewed this project back on November 17th of 2018. At the time, it was part of the AAC reviewing Lot 7, Lot 2, and Lot 10. And at that time, the applicant, we moved forward with Lot 2, and the AAC made a recommendation. The Planning Commission ultimately approved Lot 2. So now we're back today to review Lot 7, which is located at the end of the cul-de-sac in Pinnacle Point. Let me go over some plans with you. This is a site plan showing the location of the house. As I mentioned, it's at the end of a cul-de-sac, and for R1C lot, the setback requirements for this house would be 20 feet. However, the applicant is asking for a reduction of the setback to 18 feet. And you'll see that there's a dashed line, the driveway that comes up in the corner of the garage is in the setback, the front yard setback. So the administrative minor modification process through the Planning Commission allows them to ask for this reduction. They're also asking for an increase in height from 18 feet to 18 feet 6 inches, and I'll show you some renderings in a minute. But the extra 6 inches would be permitted by approval by the Planning Commission through the AMM process. So they've submitted a landscape plan showing the use of different Palo Verde trees and several large shade trees and other landscaping. So you'll see there's 2 pools, one's never enough, one on the back side and one on the front. There's a grading plan that shows the grading, the north end of the property, which is towards the top. There is what we would call a retaining wall that will allow the site, the pad, to be level. So here's a rendering of the design of the house. I want to point out it's a butterfly roof style with a garage off to the right that comes up the approach from the street. So the house sits a little bit higher than the street, about 5 feet taller than the current curb line. You'll see that there's a combination wall with a glass, sort of frosted glass in the front. And then off to the left-hand side, which is the north side, there's the retaining wall with a metal picket. And we have some pictures of that coming up. So I'll just pan through these photographs. I want to point out that there is an existing house that sits at Lot 6, which is the brown shade house at the top of the slide. Once again, this is looking south. You can see the cul-de-sac at the top and the valley below. This is the rear looking up over the hill. So from the back of this lot, it slopes quite steeply down to a canyon below this property. Again, this is in relationship to the house that's to Lot 6, which is to the bottom of the slide. And then this is the front elevation showing the combination wall of the front with landscaping, including some boulders and other desert plants. And the last slide is looking from the house down to the cul-de-sac and the valley below. So in your packet there is building elevations, and as I mentioned, the requested height is 18 feet 6 inches. The one portion of the shed roof that's on the north side of the house will be 6 inches in height, which is over the required 18. This is a slope section showing how it relates to the street. As I mentioned, the street sits about 5 feet below the pad for this property, this house. A material board is being passed around. It's a combination of browns and darker browns, roof of a brown color, and some gray tones. This is just a plan view showing in relationship to all the elements of the house, the planters, the retaining walls, and the plants. They provided us a floor plan showing how the house is laid out interior. There's a roof plan. And we asked the applicant to provide a relationship in height to the house on Lot 6. The house, the two-story house to the south is a little bit taller than the proposed home. We also asked for a lighting plan, knowing that lighting was an issue in Lot 2. This house sits higher up on the hill. It may not be as visible from people or properties over on the streets that are below, but once again, we wanted to look at the lighting plan. And I have some photographs showing current conditions. As I mentioned, this is the house that's on Lot 6. The vacant area to the left is where this house will be built. This is looking down towards the cul-de-sac. As you can see, it's a semi-graded pad. All these pad sites were graded back when the tract was first designed back in the mid-2000s. As part of marketing, they've added these concrete walkways to get up onto the site so that when they're marketing the lots, they can be easily accessible. This is a design of an existing fence that is a Lot 7. This is the picket design that they'll use on the retaining wall. And also this is a similar condition that's up there now with the block and the frosted glass that they want to use in the front. So noticing was sent out to adjacent and abutting property owners. The zoning code does not require planning staff to notify for an architectural advisory committee meeting, but being the history of Lot 2, we wanted to make sure that neighbors and residents were notified, so notices were sent out to adjacent abutting property owners a week ago. So in your staff report, there are architectural guidelines that the Architectural Advisory Committee can use to determine if this project is appropriate. As I mentioned, there was a letter that we received this morning, and it's been passed out to you. So that concludes my report, and the applicant is here.
Thank you, Glenn. Questions of staff? John Walsh?
Not yet.
Okay. Robert?
Is my assumption correct that the lot to the west of this then is at a lower pad? As you go around the cul-de-sac, is it lower? So this sits higher than the one next to it, up to the west?
You know, I don't have an aerial, but if you look in your staff report, there's a vicinity map.
Right.
So the one immediately to the left.
Yeah.
Right, so the lot to the left, actually, when the subdivision was divided, this lot has a restriction as far as there's a gully that runs through it. It's very steep.
Okay.
So they have to sort of bridge that gully. So that house will sit farther back. And I would say it's higher than this lot.
It's higher?
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
Kind of see down there.
Okay.
There's this gully.
Right. Yeah, I just didn't know. I was concerned
Oh,
about
the
this
grading
wall.
plan may.
Yeah. Thank you.
Steve, any questions?
Not at this time.
I think we have somebody from engineering here. Is it appropriate to ask them questions now?
Yes, certainly, under the questions for staff, it would
Yep.
be appropriate to have engineering come forward.
Name, please.
Rick Benhorst, engineering.
Rick, I had a question about the drainage of the existing hillside that's basically to the north. And it's coming down now, and it looks like the water's being captured in a bit of a V-ditch maybe. It's not really shown. There's a retaining wall there along the property line. Yeah, so as that water comes down off that mountainside, it looks like it's being directed to the wash to the right and to the no man's land between the two lots. Does the city have any specific requirements, especially after these last huge rainstorms, for riprap or ways to control that water as it's flowing off of this property?
Yeah, so as part of so there was a hydrology study done for the tract initially that conveyed how the water is to be captured, how it's to be drained to Pinnacle Point, and how it's to be drained or not drained to impact the other properties. It was an overall hydrology study for the tract without any houses being proposed. So now that there's a house being proposed, more than likely they'll have to do a revised hydrology study and show us how they're going to convey the water that has historically gone through the site and dumped into Pinnacle Point. So they may have to demonstrate how that's going to happen during the design phase of the grading plan. Right now, it's kind of vague how that's going to happen. It looks like they have some cross sections up in the upper right-hand corner maybe that is showing how some of that's going to happen. But they would have to demonstrate to us how they're going to convey a historic flow versus a generated flow. Generated flows have to be contained on site. Historic, if it came kind of through the site and then exited to a certain location, they have to still exit it at their historic location, and they can reroute it, but they're going to have to demonstrate to us how they do that.
Great, thank you. So all of that hydrology and drainage issue is something that your department will be reviewing separate from our planning?
Exactly.
Great. A second question, the driveway is quite steep, 17% in one point. Is there a city regulation on steepness of driveways?
There is, as it relates to city right-of-way. So this is a private road, private street. There is no ADA requirements for sidewalks and cross slopes of sidewalks and like driveway aprons. So in this case, there's really not a standard for that. For a standard driveway, you'd be not more than 8.5%, 10% into the slope. And then there is now a sidewalk provision outside of the driveway approach for a 4-foot sidewalk per the new ADA standards. This is a private road. We do not have those conditions here. It would be nice, though, that maybe perhaps they show like a grade break where the driveway approach would end on a normal circumstance, just so that there is a little bit of a break to the slope, but it's not anything that's required. A grade break there would be nice though for the driveway, instead of just a continuous slope.
And
That might be a plan check comment when it comes back.
that, again, that engineering would make.
Yes.
And back to the drainage a bit, they've got site drains surrounding the house, and it looks to me like all of that water is being carried to probably a bubbler box or something in that corner there, and then it would just flow from there into the street. Is that the intention of, I mean, is that how engineering would want this water to be handled?
Yeah, it does have to be captured. There has to be an attempt using BMPs, which are best management practices, to try to capture nuisance water flows and put them into some kind of a swale adjacent to the curb line. I'm not seeing any kind of swale there. And the tract itself doesn't have a master retention basin, so they are gonna have to try to incorporate that a little bit better here. Perhaps they may be having to put in a little bit deeper dry well. I'm not sure that the bubbler box detail that they're showing there is gonna be adequate for that. It may have to be a little bit deeper or a little bit larger. But they have the general concept down. Maybe Mike.
Yeah.
Typically, if they're gonna bring all this drainage down and put this bubbler box here, they would typically have some type of a retention basin that, you'll see them now, they're about 3 feet wide, and they run along the backside of a driveway approach or the backside of the curb, and they're typically landscaped, filled with some gravel material and that sort of thing. When the bubbler box gets inundated, nuisance water flows, it'll flow into that retention basin before it flows into the street. You know, that's the BMP. In a storm condition, it'll just run into the street. But I'm just not seeing any of those swales or anything there. When you get into situations like this, a lot of times what they end up doing is putting in an actual dry well or a modified standard dry well, which is a fairly large structure.
Instead of using the swales?
Instead of the swales, because maybe there's too much bedrock, or there's
Well, I think
not enough area.
this lot has a huge challenge in that it has such a very small street frontage, and then a chunk of it is taken up with that transformer. So just about the entire street frontage is driveway.
Yeah, there'll definitely need to be some changes to that.
Okay. Any other questions for engineering staff?
A
John?
question for engineering. I'm confused as to where this would be in the process. Is this under review at this point by the department, by
I
engineering?
do not believe that we've received a formal application for conditions.
There hasn't been an application of a building permit?
No. The conditions of approval on this would not be much different than, say, Lot 2. Is it Lot 2 that was reviewed
Right.
earlier?
As this goes to Planning Commission, engineering will provide us with a set of conditions of approval that will
Right.
have this, and we're not at that stage yet.
Okay. And Glenn, I had a question. Could you go back to the graphic that you had, the height comparison between Lot 6 and Lot 7? And if you don't mind, the comparison of the pads and then the comparison of the building heights, right? What were you trying to suss out in that? There.
This was to show the relation of the top of the roof of the second story or the two-story house on the right versus the proposed house on the left.
Okay.
It's for the AAC and the Planning Commission to make comparison to deliberate their understanding of the relationship.
In terms of the height and the massing of the structures, looking at compatibility.
Got it. And so the height that is indicated on number 7 is with the assumption that they're at the 18 feet 6 inches.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Rick, thank you. I believe the applicant is here. Would you like to come up?
Public comment? No, you speak first, and then public comment comes after that. The applicant speaks. Brian, you want to come up?
Save me. You're learning as I am. Yeah, here we Thank you. Please give us your name and address.
Brian Foster, P.O. Box 1573, Rancho Mirage.
Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you. Good to see all of you.
You have a little presentation for us?
Yes. Basically, the house, the original house that was designed there was slightly different. There's a buyer in place for this house. We made modifications to accommodate their lifestyle and preferences. The home is compatible with the existing homes in the community. The views there, if any of you have been there, are spectacular. You're probably wondering why there's two pools. You can't pick one direction over the other on the beauty of the views there. And so the thought process behind that was to take advantage of the outdoor environment of the rear of the property, maybe in the morning, and then rotate around to the front in the afternoon because of the views are absolutely spectacular there. The home, we did not increase the size of it, and learning what we did on Lot 2 and what was important and what's not, we've incorporated these modifications into this design as well to make the home compatible with the community and the requirements.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant from committee?
I don't have any questions.
John?
I'm a bit intrigued over the need for a minor modification with the 18-foot 6-inch height. Was it not possible to achieve that with a slightly different roof angle?
It is, but the roofs tend to not look right aesthetically. And also, we're trying to accommodate the FAU in the front there to the left, as you see it there by the master bedroom, to have adequate ducting run through the walls to produce enough air volume into the great room area. So that extra 6 inches was fairly critical.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Robert?
How are you supporting this roof? I see where you might do it on one end, but I don't see it on the other.
Good question. The renders, I don't know if any of the other renders to the front show.
You tell me when to stop.
Let's see if we got one dead on to the front. There, that's a little bit better. Unfortunately, there's a shadow there, but you can see the wall that runs through the right side that runs along the garage. There would be columns supported there, and there's also a column in the architectural feature in the front, and that would all tie together with structural steel. We don't plan on, this type of roof would have to be done in steel to carry the load that you see.
But on the east side, how is it supported? Where you have all this glass, all this?
Yeah. I know it looks like it's probably not possible, but it is, and we've done projects that are significantly wider spans. It just does take quite a bit of steel to do it.
Okay. Are you planning on putting solar in?
No, we hadn't planned on putting solar
No
panels.
solar, okay.
If there is a need for solar, it looked like the right areas to do it would be on the lower roof areas would be adequate.
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in, the city has adopted a solar policy, and so this residence will be subject to that. But again, as you've indicated, you have adequate roof space to do that on top of the flat roofs.
Yes, and that would be like a starter package of solar panels? Yeah. Okay.
That's it for now, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, the butterfly roof, the roof surface is probably visible from off the property. What will that surface be?
Membrane roof, but I don't think you'll see that
Yeah,
roof.
that's why I hesitated. I know you're below it. And
Yeah, I
looking
don't,
up.
I modeled it and looking at it, it's not really visible. I couldn't find a spot where it would be. And of course, the membrane roofs are smooth, so they do look aesthetic.
But are there any gutters or drainage systems that would work? I see that you have roof drains on the flat roofs, but on that butterfly roof, is there any water capturing elements as part of that?
The roof plan will show those, there's some crickets that show the flow of the water.
So it's just gonna fall off of both of those low points onto the front and back patios?
Yes, correct.
The majority of the glass in the great room faces either east or west and has very little overhang. Was there any consideration of trying to capture, maybe even at the header of the door line, an overhang or something to give some sun protection to those windows?
That's a good question. We haven't got to the point to where it's been engineered yet for Title 24, so there may be a reduction of glass or increased roof overhang possibly. But at this point, it appears that it would comply based on most of the sun exposure is on the west, as you know, and we have minimal glass on the other sides of the home.
And last question, it looks to me that there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy between the landscape plan and the grading plan. On the landscape, you've got a big tree in that upper corner, and it looks like some boulders probably capturing. On the grading plan, that's shown as a very steep slope, dropping almost 8 feet. No.
That shows in one of these renderings.
Yeah.
Which is correct? I mean, are you intending to have a big tree there with a boulder capturing the berming, or?
Well, it was kind of
I mean, yeah, that
a
shows
thought
it
by
kinda
the
like a
landscape
grading plan.
architect, but that shows you there the intent behind that.
Okay. And then on the floor plan in the master bath, the elevation in the floor plan, I'm confused. On the elevation, you show a long clear story window over most of it, and then a full height window on the at the end. On the floor plan here, it appears that the window is continuous.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about this window here?
Yeah.
That's a clear story.
On the floor plan, you're showing a full height window? I mean, on the
Oh,
elevations?
at the end there, I think at one point there was,
I didn't include those on.
yeah, can I see the elevations?
Yeah.
That side elevation?
There, you can see it on the bottom left
Right,
side elevation.
right. I think that at some point that was considered to be a door, but I think at this point we may just eliminate that window altogether.
Makes sense. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, committee, let's see.
No,
what-
public comment.
I'm sorry, public comments. Please come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes for comments.
Thank you for indulging me. My name is Scott Lyle, and I'm with Douglas Elman Real Estate, and I'm here on behalf of the purchasers of the home, and they wanted me to read a statement. So if you indulge me, they wish they could be here in person to talk to you. They're currently up away in Portland, Oregon, where they reside. They wanted me to explain a little bit about them. David Carter is an artist and a teacher, and Jamie is a psychotherapist. For several years, we have been contemplating spending the winter months in Palm Springs. Over the past few years, this vision has morphed into the possibility of gradually making a full-time move. When we first saw Lot 7 in Pinnacle Court, we were literally stunned at how much it matched our vision. It was like experiencing a real deja vu. We appreciated the architectural designs and integrity of the homes that had already been built in the development. They were with our design tastes and what we're imagining living in. When we researched Brian Foster's designs, we were extremely impressed with his aesthetic. Being a designer and artist myself, I have collaborated with architects on our other homes. Over the past 5 months, it has been a delight to work with Brian, and we are very much appreciative of the way in which he has redesigned the home to fulfill our desires. Jamie and I are very sensitive to neighborly relationships, and we wanted to make sure the design of our home was harmonious to and complemented the community. We are hopeful that you will agree. So needless to say, we are delighted about our impending home being built in South Palm Springs, and we are looking forward to becoming a part of the Pinnacle community and the larger Palm Springs community. We thank you for your time. Signed, David Carter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'll turn it over to the committee now to discuss. John, you ready? Steve?
I have no comments right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I have no comments.
Robert?
I would support staff recommendation, well, oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't have personally, I don't have an issue with the requested variance on the setback for the driveway. The 18.6 I don't think is gonna kill it, but I think you probably could drop it 6 inches somehow. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think it's a very interesting project. Knowing that it's a custom home, that makes sense why they're having 2 pools and doing some different things, and, you know, more power to them. My biggest comment would be about the steepness of the driveway, and especially the fact that you have to walk up that driveway to get to the front entry gate. I wonder if you would get some consideration to possibly dropping the floor of the garage a foot or 2 so that the driveway could be not quite so steep. I know that would add a couple of stairs inside the house, but I think it just might make the approach better. Really, the only public view of the house is of the garage, and I think they've done a good job of making it an interesting garage with the overhang and the doors and things. So, that's my comments.
So
John?
according to the plan, the garage is already 2 feet below the grade
right.
of the house.
Yeah, I didn't see that. John?
I think my observations would be that this is a very challenging site, and it's many times it's an architect's desire to kind of get in there and to figure out how to come up with a solution. When you purchase something like this, it is what it is, and you kind of through the schematic process find out what you can and can't do. I have trouble kind of with the request for some relief on the front setback as well as the height. Those standards and rules are in place for a reason, and I think that when you have a site like this that has challenges around it, that's kind of what you sign up for. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have a motion? May I make a motion? I would move that we approve this project with any conditions that staff has added to the, any conditions that staff has. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? We're passed. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, could we just take a brief 5-minute break before
Sure.
we start on the next item?
Sure.
Thank you.
I have nothing to say. It's actually, refreshing that there's like.
Hidden behind the screen or what?
Because they do have some screening.
I mean, this is obviously closed, but then over here it might be open.
So what's weird is when you're at the existing site, when you look at these roofs, it's not a constructed wood frame roof, it's an aluminum thing like you'd have on running on a trailer. And I can't imagine they're gonna enclose that behind the, and part of it is a real roof. In fact, you can see the change right there, there's the real roof, there's the awning, and then this is awning running down this side. Right, and it's just a little like quarter acre.
So, yeah, it's just over the walkway then.
It's listed in the report, so,
balcony, the stucco. But that's not the roof. Signage, which is part of the building.
yeah, and what's really weird is there's these, this unbelievable connection of gutters. This one could be living at an angle across the garage door. And they're kind of proposing the same thing.
Though it doesn't show up on the renderings.
Yeah, just a few. This window doesn't show on the rendering.
The man cave.
Man cave, yes.
It will be before you soon.
I remember.
Coming attractions.
Okay, we can move ahead. Everybody has returned. We're on new business, item number 5. Austin Todd, on behalf of California Organics, for a minor architectural application to renovate an existing 5,044 square foot, 2-story industrial building for a cannabis cultivation facility located at 695 South Williams Road. Staff.
Thank you, Chair. So this project was reviewed by the Planning Commission on February 13th. I have my glasses on. So this is a little unusual. Usually the AAC reviews projects before it goes to the Planning Commission, but the way the cannabis process is the Planning Commission needed to approve a conditional use permit, which was approved on the 13th of February. And as part of some of the conditions of approval of that was that the AAC would review the exterior renovations of the building. So the Planning Commission has given direction to the AAC to review the exterior portions of the building that include the balcony area. And the presentation I have today does not show the project that the Planning Commission reviewed. So what you're seeing today is a altered or revised plan from what the Planning Commission. So some of the comments may seem a little strange to you, meaning more stucco versus metal mesh. The Planning Commission review had the reverse. They had more metal than stucco. So what you're seeing today sort of reflects what the Planning Commission was giving them direction. They wanted to see all rooftop mechanical equipment, signage to be integrated in the architecture, although signage is not under review by the AAC. Entry doors be more pronounced than the stairway doors, and to evaluate proposed colors. So I had passed around a color sample for you to see the actual samples versus the renderings, which don't always match, as we know, paint chips versus printer paper. So to orient the AAC, I know this is the first time you reviewed this project. It's a corner lot, and you'll see the building is not in the best shape. It's 2 stories. It's been industrial. It's been well worn. You'll see that it's an L-shaped with the parking lot in the front with a low wall around the parking lot. What's important to notice in this drawing is that currently the stairwells that go up to the second floor are exterior. You access them from the exterior. So let me go up to the. So currently, this is a stairwell to go up to the second floor and another stairwell to go up to the second floor. And the Planning Commission was concerned that because of the nature of the operation being a cannabis grow facility and manufacturing, that the product would not be taken outside and then taken back in another door. So they wanted to see that the internal workings of the building included internal stairways, and I'll show you that in a minute. So this is a site plan. It shows the L-shaped building with the parking in the front. They need to meet ADA requirements, so they're adding a handicap space. And also they're adding a carport above the spaces that are along Sunny Dunes Road. And I have a drawing of the carports farther on. In looking at the landscape plan, you'll see that they're providing acacia trees and other low-lying plants along the street frontages. Here are some photographs of the current condition of the property. You'll notice that the second floor, there's an open balcony area, and they're proposing to enclose that balcony area to provide an internal walkway within the, to move from the rooms. Instead of going outside, it'll be stuccoed over and enclosed to make it the total square footage of the building. So as already mentioned, this is the first floor. You'll see that the stairwells now are internal to the building, so you don't have to walk outside to get into up to the second floor. This is showing the dispensary going, the main portion of the dispensary, and then some storage and delivery space. And then the second floor, you'll see that the stairs go up to the stairwell inside the building. And manufacturing operations will occur on the second floor. The Planning Commission was concerned about the mechanical roof equipment and how it would be screened. The original plan was more individual screening around each of the units, so they've changed this to provide a more lineal top portion of the building, the roof, to hide the mechanical equipment. And they're using a perforated metal. So as we get into the architecture, I will leave the design description up to the architect who's here today. He can do a better job than I can, but you'll notice that you'll see the perforated metal on the exterior of the building, and then you'll see the stucco in the middle section. In the original plan, it was mainly all the perforated metal, so they've revised the plan to enclose the balcony area that goes along the second floor with the stucco elements. They also have revised the doors. You'll see the main entrance, and yes, the property is called Pineapple Express, the use, and you'll see that entry door is a little bit more pronounced than the door, the doors to the stairwells on the either end of the buildings. So they did respond to the Planning Commission's request. There's a trash enclosure that's on the left-hand side of the property. You'll see that's fully enclosed and secured. Once again, I'll show you, these are some renderings of the building with the mesh. There's a roll-up door to get into the facility. This is a rendering showing the carport that will cover half of the parking spaces. And then a night shot of downlighting that they're proposing. So in your staff report, there is architectural guidelines that the AAC can use to determine if the design is appropriate and meets these standards. And that concludes my report, and the applicant is here.
Thank you, Glenn. Does the committee have any questions of staff? I have one clarification, or I just want to make sure we all understand. We are not reviewing the use of this building. That's been approved already by the Planning Commission. We're just looking at the architectural aesthetic.
Yes, you're here to look at the design, colors, plants.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? I believe the applicant is here. Would you like to approach and give us your name and address and a little presentation of what you're doing?
Doesn't matter here, as long as he's talking to Mike. Okay. My name is Troy Mass. I reside at 260 Corte San Marco. There we go. 260 Corte San Marco in Palm Desert. The overall design of the building is to give the branding of the company, which is publicly held, Pineapple Express, a look and feel, both exterior and interior, of a sort of upscale luxury Hawaiian themed kind of environment. So the outside is purposely designed, excuse me, to look like an old pineapple warehouse or factory. And then when you go inside, it's kind of high-end branding that we have had done by a design group called the McBride Group. They also do a number of other restaurant designs, typically for Jimmy Buffett and Shaquille O'Neal and others. So.
And my name is Gabriel Lujan. I'm from a GLA Design Group. I'm here to answer any architectural questions that you may have on the design of an old dilapidated building that we're trying to make it look as kind of one of its own. We believe that we've done quite an excellent job. I mean, this is going to raise the bar around that area for anybody that's doing cannabis and or any type of activity other than industrial.
Okay, questions of the applicant?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions. One, with the metal corrugated panels, what do those actually just float in front of the stucco wall?
They do. Actually, they're bolted to the concrete as well as the roof line.
Okay.
And that was done because we were told that there might be some fear that there might be odors seeping out of the building itself, and anything that would penetrate the walls barrier could potentially leak odors. It's important to know, even though we are licensed for cultivation, we are not growing marijuana in there. So we opted not to do that because there's really no reason to it. There's no ROI for us to,
Right.
It just came with it, so.
Okay, and then the other question I know, as I'm looking at it, I'm noticing there are literally no windows in this building.
Yeah, I'm not overly excited about that either, but.
So I'm wondering about, any natural light that could reduce the sort of carbon footprint of the building.
One of the things the city of Palm Springs is very uptight on is odor control.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to keep the envelope as closely tight as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is also the reason no windows are in most of these dispensaries and or manufacturing places is because of security.
I assumed there was a security component.
Security issue, security and odor, that's why we removed any and all windows. In our original design, we had a nice window right down the middle, but the architecture, not the architect, the planning commission told us to remove it because of odor control issues.
And Mr. Chair, I will just confirm that there are security issues that do prevent the use of windows in many of the functions for dispensaries, cultivation, manufacturing, et cetera.
Even like a high security with wire mesh or those kinds of applications?
You know, in certain situations, in certain existing situations, we've allowed it, but when we have a significant remodeling project such as this, we generally don't have penetrations to the exterior through either excessive doors or windows or things like that.
Okay.
Tom?
I had a question on the exterior lights that are on the building. Are those part of the theme of the warehouse, the Pineapple Warehouse theme?
Yeah, I mean, they're intentionally designed to look like they would be part aesthetically speaking of the building itself. But no, I mean, there's no intention one direction or another other than aesthetics.
Okay, I didn't know if they were like, you'd find that same fixture, I think it's on the front cover page, on a actual warehouse.
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, we've taken some liberties here,
Okay.
but yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
John?
A question for you on the metal panels. They're just painted, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if I stand really close to one, can I see through it? I can see
You
something.
you will be able to see through, and you will see the stucco in the back, the stucco finish painted.
And in a couple cases, a window, the one window or something on
The window
second floor?
disappeared. No windows on the second floor.
Okay, okay.
All windows
Great.
disappeared.
And when I look at this one elevation, I'm sorry, that's the front door?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
all right. Thank you.
John McCoy?
Yes, I do have some questions. Okay, when I look at the renderings, I see a carport, and when I look at the site plan, landscape site plan, I do not see a carport. Are we putting in a carport?
We are putting in a carport. Unfortunately, that was a last second item that was added during the 3D renderings, and it did not go to the landscape designer architect, so, but there will be a carport in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the trees are gone.
No, they're adding trees.
They're,
So to clarify, is this plan not correct? The trees that are along here are not correct?
The trees will still be installed, but they will be away from the carport.
okay. And then let's compare the photometric with what you've got. You've got that same region, those three trees, you've got a light pole exactly where the middle of the middle tree is.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a canopy, so the light pole would be lighting the roof.
So the light pole more likely
So-
would be disappearing because the
Right.
parking structure will have its own lighting underneath.
Right, but we have no specifications as to what that lighting underneath will be.
No.
And when I look at the specifications of the lights, they do not match the renderings with the pineapple themed lights that Tom noted. They're actually very industrial wall pack lights that don't reflect what you're trying to show in lighting numbers on the walls. They don't reflect any of the soft imagery that you're showing here. So also the photometrics that you've got end at the property line, and you're still very high in numbers. So you are, I get the need for security, but to overlight and go in overkill mode is not appropriate to the neighbors and what's going on in the vicinity. So I think the lighting needs to be respecified and noted. These wall packs that I looked up and the street lights don't meet any of the cutoff requirements. So I think that needs to be looked at.
And that should not be a problem. We can re-study the photometric.
Yeah, and even the decorative ones that you're showing here would not meet cutoff standards.
Okay.
We don't
either.
need this.
Yeah, well-
Attractive and-
We don't need that.
And it's nice in the
Correct,
design.
correct.
But, you know, the lighting levels that I understand you're trying to get to for security, for the
Yeah.
use, I understand that. Just, you know, needs to be worked into the architecture and.
Sure.
Correct.
Fair to the neighbors, you've got residential that's not that far away. If we start with this high level of lighting on every project that comes in, suddenly everything just starts
Understood.
escalating.
Yeah, that's cool.
Correct, and that's not a problem. Unfortunately, our electrical consultant was on vacation when Mr. Mass made some changes on the 3D on the lighting, so that's why we have the difference, and we were not able to get it in a timely manner so we can make a submittal and still be heard on this date.
Okay, and then with the carport, you might want to evaluate your plantings.
Correct.
As well.
Okay.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, a couple of questions. On the rooftop screening, I am assuming that if you're coming from either Williams or Sunny Dunes toward the building, that you're going to see the rooftop equipment because your screening does not extend along the back.
Correct.
So I would say you probably need to do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. And once again, we don't know the perforated, how perforated it'll be so that you cannot see the equipment.
Yeah,
But we totally plan on screening all the equipment. We understand the problems. We saw that in Cathedral City in some of the projects that were approved early in the run, and now we're correcting all those mistakes.
Okay, and then the other question is, can you talk to me about the roll-up door, how that works?
The roll-up door, I'll show you, right? See this little line right here? This is the difference. This is a roll-up door that'll be rolling in.
Okay.
And there's still a little panel that will stay up on top so that we can get an extra height.
Okay.
So you can barely see that little white line, but
You're
that's,
right, I could barely see it.
Yeah, but it's right there. And that was a design intention, so you cannot tell that it's a roll-up door.
Okay.
Until it opens up and closes.
Yeah, that's it for now, thanks.
Glenn, could you put up the aerial photo that shows the roof? The second floor roof at the end of the building here, closest to Sunny Dunes, and then over the walkway and returning up along parallel to Williams, is just a metal roof like you'd have on a mobile home.
We're gonna frame it in.
So that's gonna be removed.
Removed and
And then
completed.
when you frame the new roof, I assume it's gonna overhang the new wall somewhat so that it can capture the bottom of these metal screening?
Correct.
Okay. You're filling in you're filling in all the openings.
All of them.
And the existing texture of the plaster or stucco is kind of a lace thing, which is very hard to patch. You're gonna see where all the doors are. Would it be your intention to literally remove all of the stucco and re-stucco the building so that you don't have the ghost of what used to be
Correct.
there?
Wherever we need to, we are gonna remove and start over, so.
So then, if you did that, especially on that long run of plaster, I would encourage you to consider some reglets in there, just to give a little bit of a design to that wall, and maybe then you would eliminate the brown stripe and just create some interest with reglets in the plaster, just to consider.
Or put the reglets and put our brown stripe. We kinda like the brown stripe. I don't know, what do you think?
Capture
Yeah,
it between reglets.
capture with the reglets, yeah.
That's all I have for applicant. Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, I have one, go ahead.
Just a question on the site plan. There's, I guess you could see it in the top rendering, just to the right of it where there's these two deeper parking stalls. Is that, I'm not sure why those are there, or is that gonna be a fenced area, or?
To the site plan.
Yeah, you see them right there, so,
Oh, these two back there.
correct. It almost creates like a dead end something.
Can we look at the regular site plan, see what we did? Yeah, we just left it as deeper. We have options. we can create a planter area here and push them back in. I mean, there's plenty of options that we have there, so.
But it's not like a loading or off?
No, it's not a loading or anything like that, so.
Okay.
Because we have our delivery area over here, where we come in, deliver, get it in, and then get out.
Okay, thank you.
But if we can keep them, you know what, as a matter of fact, we can use the longer vehicles for loading and unloading also there.
A question I had is, on the second floor, all the rooms are labeled manufacturing. What do you manufacture? Stuff, nothing's being grown here, right?
Nothing's being grown here, no. We do volatile and non-volatile distilling up there. So it's basically, think of it in terms of a hull. The whole area, just under 2,000 square feet, is a C1D1 explosion-proof sound and exterior barrier all the way around. So we have specific company that comes in and builds explosion-proof walls, basically, on the interior. Then they do a whole lab up there. Inside the rooms themselves, there's actually pods as well. So there's 2 layers of explosion proofing inside of them. So I'm not, technically able to really communicate effectively all of what goes in there. But yeah, I mean, it's to protect everybody, to protect the neighborhood, to protect everything going on. But, it definitely is something that we take very, very seriously. So that area in particular is going to have, secure access to certain employees and the rest won't have access to. So that's also another condition. And then we have someone just managing and supervising that particular area.
Another question on the carport.
Sure.
The rendering, I think, shows it very accurately that the carport is not going to put any shade on the cars. It's going to put shade on the driveway. And I think the carport looks a little
too tall,
like an orphan. And I think the trees along there would be a much better practical way to shade the cars.
I'm cool with that.
And then,
money.
Yeah.
Glenn and Flynn, a question.
Unless, was the carport intended to have solar panels?
I thought it'd be. Did I turn it off again? Yeah. Maybe it's gone. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not coming in again. Yeah, I intended to have the solar panels on there, mainly just because then, I could save a little bit on the lights underneath. But I mean, that was the intent, but I don't need it to be, so.
And a question for staff. Was the Planning Commission aware of the serious nature of the manufacturing that's going to go on here with these explosion-proof walls and things?
We didn't get into the specific details on the interior construction of it, but they were aware that manufacturing process would occur within the building. That was addressed under the conditional use permit where they were specifically allowed to do cultivation and manufacturing. In terms of the actual processes, that's not governed by the zoning code, but rather by our licensing code for cannabis-related businesses in terms of any volatile extraction processes that are used. And that, in turn, is inspected by our fire department.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Committee discussion comments. John Walsh? Not yet? Steve?
So overall, I think, I think it's not a bad looking thing. My only comment, I think I don't really want to see this to go that beige color like everything else in that area. I do find it a tad dark, so I think it could be lightened a hair. But overall, I think the color scheme is nice. I like the metal panels. And what they're going to bring to it. The perforated panel, I think at the air conditioning enclosures needs to be looked at because even in the rendering you can see right through it. So I think that we've got to make sure that satisfies. That's my comment.
Thank you. Tom?
I guess the only, there were 3 items. With the exterior mounted light fixtures, is the lumen allowed to be exposed like that, or would they have to maybe revisit a different? I like the idea of it, and I was thinking you either make it larger and make more of an architectural statement of it, or you go to a different kind of fixture that might cast light up and down, you know, on the wall to create a pattern or a design.
Right, right. As mentioned, the rendering lights are different than what the photometric. So
Correct.
obviously the photometric is going to have to be updated because it's not reflective of what they're proposing.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, I thought it was part of a themed light from the packing facility, and then the other question I had is on on one of the renderings it shows like a column coming into the parking lot at the end of the wall. So I think it's on page. Let's see here. It's kind of a narrow square column at the end of the wall.
P1? Oh, yeah.
Which one is it? Okay, right there.
Yeah. No, it's on, sorry, I had it there. Use some pretty heavy stock. Let's see. Well, the one rendering doesn't show it, but then you go to different page. Did you find it? No. Okay, I'll find it here. Hold on. I apologize.
Were you looking at this, Tom?
No, it was over here.
Oh, okay.
As you enter into the driveway.
Unless you're talking about the support for the
No.
carport?
Let's see. Oh, boy. I guess you can kind of see it in the last page, but there was another rendering. Where are these? Oh, I guess it's on the front cover, I'm sorry. On the front cover, there's like two columns as you enter, and I don't, they don't show on the other entrance, so I didn't know if that's meant to be gated at some point, or,
Yeah, I see these.
I don't have the slides don't have this drawing, but I see what you're talking about.
yeah, on the front cover.
Right.
Look
So,
at the right page.
you know, we often see columns at entryways, and whether they're residential or these commercial facilities. I'm not aware of it. The plans aren't showing a gate, but it would not prohibit them from gating it if they wanted to, whether it would be a slide.
Right. I think, just looking at it, if they're putting this brick cap on top of the wall, then either those columns need to be larger or more significant, or go away altogether, as shown in the other rendering.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know if that was part of the theme.
Yeah,
And
those,
then-
those columns will go away.
Okay,
They'll
and
go
then
away.
the other is kind of restudy that side area with the deep parking stalls to at least get a planter at the end of those stalls, in front of the wall. It might just create an odd area back there that people will go back there, and then they have a long way to back up to.
Thank you. John?
I think that you have cooked up an attractive architectural solution to a tired little building. And you now have produced something that's rather tailored looking with some inexpensive materials. So mission accomplished.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said, and I will say it is a two-story box with no windows. The details are important. You know, the fixtures that you show on the wall, if they were used in the plan in a low wattage decorative manner, that could be very nice. If you're going to use them as your high wattage security lighting, they're not legal per code. So I guess I want to see the lighting and the landscape in the final, how it comes together. If you're going to do a carport, great. If you're going to use trees, great. But let us know what's under the carport, not just fluorescent tubes. And like I said, the details are going to make the project.
Yep. I will make it look like.
Thanks.
Yep.
Robert?
Yeah, I apologize. I have a question for staff and I have a question for the applicant. Staff, the 695 that shows up on the building, is that going to be part of the signage application or?
Right. The zoning code sort of dictates what letter numbering, street numbering can be. So if it was part of a signage scheme, they'd have to come in. But if it's not, the numbers are too large.
Okay. Thank you. And then the applicant, what kind of trash is generated?
So first of all, we do have a waste management company that will come out every day and take care of all the trash. But there's going to be trash from the extraction process. There'll be trash from cannabis vapes and other various paraphernalia that just has a shelf life to it that we can't reuse, and it has to be destroyed properly.
So, go ahead, Clint.
Let me go ahead and jump in on that. In terms of certain products that are generated from cannabis facilities, obviously they can't go into the outside trash that's accessible to the public. And so under our business regulations, our permitting regulations, not in the zoning code, but in the other section of the municipal code, there are certain procedures and restrictions that apply to the disposal of cannabis products that will have to be maintained inside the facility. So the only things that can go in the outside dumpsters are essentially their recycling, cardboard materials, things like that. Nothing in terms of cannabis products can go in the outside dumpsters.
Well, part of the reason I asked is I know odor is a big issue, and this is an open trash area, and depending on what products are being put in there, you still are, you can seal the building, but if you've got your trash out there, you still have a problem.
Yeah, the stinky things can't be put in those containers.
And is that monitored somehow?
Through the city's upgraded monitoring plan on odor enforcement, because of the concerns that we've had with some existing facilities, we've now trained our staff and obtained equipment which will allow us to monitor. And as part of that plan, the city attorney is having code enforcement do inspections on a regular basis of facilities. So the city has taken steps to do a better job of monitoring those types of things.
Okay. So I'll get to my comments. I think I agree with the rest of the committee in terms of it being a big improvement. I did note, and actually it triggered, the chair, when we were talking, triggered a thing about the downspout. And it shows on one of the plans that provides cover with downspout. Since you have to rebuild, you're putting all this new framed wall, I would suggest that you put an internal downspout, so it's not coming down the middle of this nice plaster wall or one of your metal screens. So otherwise, I think it looks great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm hearing a number of things from the committee members. It sounds like that additional work is needed on the lighting, also verifying if the carport is going to be built or not built and how that impacts the landscaping. And then finally, just we need some additional information on mechanical equipment screening. I think what you might be able to do is go ahead and approve the application with those 4 aspects coming back to you when the applicant has them finalized. So again, I think that might be an appropriate way to go based on your comments.
And my comment would be also that right now it appears that there's 3 different types of metal screening. There's a unique sort of pattern at the entry Then there's the wall panels on the majority of the building, and then a third screen up on the air conditioning equipment. I think that's too many different screens. I agree that all those screens are necessary, but it might be that at least maybe the air conditioning screening matches the screening that's on the walls. I can totally get it that to do a unique screening at the door, at the entry, kind of calls us to that is the entry. And other than that, I think it's a tremendous improvement for this neighborhood. We have a motion?
I haven't moved today. I move to approve with the rooftop screening, the carport, and the lighting to come back to us.
And I would add the, looking at the fry reglets, or the reglets on the
I think you have
exterior as
to
well.
Second and vote and then amend. Is that right, Flynn?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we'll have a second to the motion, and then any amendments we would consider at that point in time. So we need someone to second.
Second.
Okay, did I hear an amendment?
Do I need to repeat? Yes, to amend it to include the reglet detail on the wall, on the stucco wall.
And can I amend the amendment? I think that we should require that the building be replastered so that it has a common texture and that reglets are included in that plastering design. So now, are
I
we
think
voting?
I have to accept the amendments.
Correct.
I accept the amendments.
Okay, and now we vote first on the motion. And then does that automatically accept the amendments?
Yes. Because the individual who made the motion has accepted the amendments, you will now vote on the motion with the amendments as accepted.
Okay, as Mr. Flynn said. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed, thank you. So that finishes our new business. Are there any committee member comments? Hearing none, any staff comments?
I just have one thing. I believe I emailed all of you information about the California Preservation Foundation Conference, which will be held May 8th through the 11th. Because the city is the host sponsor, we are able to offer free conference registration to our board and committee members. There's a caveat to that. This does not include any ticketed items such as the Sunnylands reception and some of the tours and so forth. If you haven't already emailed me and would like to let me know, if you could let me know right after the meeting, and I'll go ahead and get you signed up for that. But again, this is a terrific opportunity for us to take advantage of that conference. And with that, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Or?
We technically do not.
The
You can just go
meeting is-
ahead.
The meeting is adjourned.
Correct.
Thank you.